Blink. Hop, sop, bip, bop, ba da dee da 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 da. Ra bop, bop, beep, bop, ba. Dee 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 dee. Hello. Hey, warriors. Come out. Oh, sorry. Oh, I haven't watched the 1979 Walter Hill film The Warriors in a very long time. I should look into that. Remember the Warriors? Remember Warriors come out and play? The only other thing I ever saw Luther in was the David O. Russell film Flirting with Disaster from the mid to late 90s. I'm pretty sure it's David O. Russell. I didn't see it until it was well out of theaters because I was really sick of Ben Stiller by that point. But it is one of Mary Tyler Moore's best post Mary uh, roles. Anyway, enough about me. All right, let's try to get to it. Sorry, I'm a little. I think I got one of those headaches that is just making me a little punchy. So I'm feeling silly man. All right, what am I going to start with? I'm going to start with this one. First up, Clobbering Time #1 by written and drawn by Steve Scroce. I think it is Scroce actually. The last thing Scroce did was a book called Post Americana, which I really liked, and I think I talked about on here. And I think at that time, I know his name, and I definitely know his art. It's very distinctive. But I don't know where he kind of broke. But he has a very like I don't know how well you can tell, but he's got like a very Dave Gibbonsy, Daniel Warren Johnsony sort of shtick going for him. I don't know how to say it. This is obviously a spinoff of the Fantastic Four, featuring the Thing and his catchphrase, and also the premise of one of my better jokes. Also featuring the Incredible Hulk, the old dumb Hulk, which is how I like it. When the Thing and the Hulk team up, it's always fun. There was a Marvel graphic novel called Thing, Hulk, and the Big Something or Other. Um, I was just talking about it with my friend Frank because it was one of the first comics. There was an early comic that I read. It was so good. It was very silly, which this promises to be. Scroce's like um, bit of a silly boy himself. Like Post Americana was a post-apocalyptic sort of thing, but a lot of dick jokes and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, this is a no-brainer. I mean, even if Scroce wasn't doing this, I'd buy any sort of thing spinoff. That's just how I roll. And then this will be brief because I don't know anything about these books. First up, I have Don't Spit in the Wind #1. The good people at Mad Cave Studios. And speaking of Scroce, this guy's got, I don't know, was it Stefano Cardoselli, whose name I'm not familiar with, but has a very Brandon Graham type early teens indie flavor to it. So that was really all I needed. I read the solicit and it sounded interesting, but really the cover was enough. It's got like a kind of a Tank Girl vibe going for it. It looks like a fun sci-fi indie, which I'm all for. And Mad Cave is a pretty underrated publisher. I don't read a ton of their stuff, but whenever I do, I'm always like, oh, it's pretty good. Another book I don't have any idea about, Granite State Punk. This is by more guys that I don't know who they are. This is from Scout Comics, another small label, and this is a one shot. I'm not again. I read the solicit, and I'm. You put punk in the title of something, I'm probably going to buy it, and which is weird because I don't know if I've gone on this particular rant, but music and comics just don't tend to mix very well. I think I have, but whatever. I don't know what it is. There's something about. I mean, it could be that comics are completely visual medium, and so there's no real sound to it. And occasionally, you get comics that try to have a soundtrack, either a track listing in the front or the back, or shit. There was a book from like 2017 that I really liked by a writer I really liked, and I can't remember the name of either of them. So clearly, they made an impression on me. That's not to do with them. That's absolutely to do with my own short-term memory loss, and also with my short-term memory loss. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. Punk though is the closest thing that you're gonna get because I think because Punk, well, obviously because I like Punk, but I think it's simple enough that it kind of works. And I'll mention that again when we talk about picks of last week. But there is a book from the mid aughts or late aughts, I want to say, called "Teenagers from Mars," which is the title of a Misfits song. And there was no actual music in that book, but it was extremely punk. Uh, Evan Dorkin's like pirate core stuff, Hectic Planet, whatever the hell he wanted to call it, that he never finished. Also very punk. It was like a future sci-fi thing, but very very punk. So there's something about, but whenever like the most egregious case that I always point to, there was a Marvel miniseries in the '80s called Steel Town Rockers. Which how could you go wrong there? And I'm pretty sure now that I didn't even put it together, but Jim Shooter is from Pittsburgh, otherwise known as Steel Town, and I wouldn't be surprised if he wrote that. But really, trying to put any sort of music from the '80s into anything, including your ears, is not. I don't know. And this, I mean, it's not. I mean, even in like movies and stuff, whenever they make a movie about a band, it always rings completely false to me if it's not Spinal Tap. So I don't know. This obviously has bands in it, but like Spider Punk has a band in it, and that was way fun and very punk. So that's where I'm gonna land. Don't put a band in your comic book unless it's a punk band. And you got nobody to complain to, except for who cares. All right. I tried to hurry through this one last time, and I think I still did a half an hour because I wanted to watch The Mandalorian. And then as soon as I was done, I laid down and played a game on my phone for 2 hours and didn't even remember there was such a show. I know what's wrong with me sometimes. All right, last week we read Exo Manowar Unconquered #1. This was it was fine. I don't know if I'm gonna hurt myself to get the rest, but if they come in like they should, and because I don't know, it was really this issue was very setting up the current, like kind of trying to fill in people on who Exo Manowar is and like kind of the premise of the book, and I wasn't overly familiar with that, but I also was like, it was also drawn by Liam Sharp, who drew Batman Reptilian. I guess that was last year, and whose art I really do tend to enjoy, and especially with this book, it's pretty good. But I don't know. I feel like I'm being way fussier these days, just because uh, I don't know. I know it might look otherwise, but I'm not very well off financially, so I can't really be just buying comics just for momentum, which is what does happen a lot. So it's not a ringing endorsement, I'm aware, but it's still worth a read. Also, last week I got the milestone 30th anniversary special. Who scribbled on my comic book? Oh, it's Dennis Cowan. He was at the shop on Saturday signing this book specifically. He would sign other stuff, but you had to pay extra for that. If you wanted just to sign this, though, it was for free, which that's how it goes. This was actually really good, though. There was one the first story we have all the current milestone characters go into the past and meet the original milestone characters. And I mean, like when they restarted the milestone series, they did kind of start everything over again. But I didn't know that they were ever going to call back to the '90s milestone stuff. So that was cool. The only thing that bothered me with that story, though, was that the current hardware shows up halfway through the story without any explanation. he just he just teleports in like that guy and girl in the gold boots, and that's a deep cut Mystery Science Theater reference for you. And nobody ever says anything, but whatever. But it's also fun. We get like Static Beyond, as in Batman Beyond, Static, and yeah, I love the milestone stuff. It's great. Icon versus Hardware was supposed to come out today, #2, but it apparently did not ship. It's hard to tell with DC what the hell they're doing over there. But here's something that I didn't mention last week that I am going to mention this week. The Swamp Thing Green Hell #3. This is another Misfits song, Green Hell. And I might have mentioned this when I talked about the first issue of the series, but I never known the lyrics to that song, even though I've been listening to the Misfits since I was shit in yellow. And one of the lyrics in Green Hell is, "It's just like hell, but kind of green." And I'm sorry if you don't think Glenn Danzig is a genius after that. I don't have anything to say to you. This was a long time coming. The first issue, I want to say, came out. Fuck me, was it a year ago? No, it couldn't have been. It was a very long time ago, though. And this is the third issue is finally out. It's some of Doug Monkey's best art, and it's also an excuse. I don't think I really put this together before. Jeff Lemire, who's like just a big DC guy, he wrote Swamp Thing for a good long while in the early teens, as well as Animal Man, who doesn't show up, but his daughter does. And man, it's just it was that, and it was Dead Man shows up. I always loved Dead Man. So I don't know. It was just it was the most. It was some of the most fun I had reading comics this week, which I'm getting closer, but not entirely caught up. But it has been kind of a drag. Like I feel like it's definitely I'm burning out on a lot of stuff, but it's nice when a book like this comes along. Like, oh right, I love this shit. And I think after I read that, because that's another thing I'll notice too. Sometimes when I'm reading, is I'll get through a couple, and then I'm like, what's on TV? Or like I just get kind of like bored. I guess is the only word to say. But when I'm into it and I hit a rhythm and I can just lay there and read comics for hours on end, I had to do laundry, but still, that was this thing. And oh, just about 12